Sure.
All right, so we got, number 2 says we got 2 observers that are standing on a shore a half mile apart at points A and B. So we're going to draw. Point A is one person. Standing down the shoreline somewhere down here is person B. And we know this is 1/2 mile. If you want to put 0.5, you can. They're half a mile apart. And then it says to measure the angle to the sailboat. So there's a sailboat somewhere out here in the water. We're going to call that C. Now, if you want to put person A here, if you want to write person so you remember what they are, sometimes that helps. Person B, sailboat C. Okay, so sometimes that helps. It says the angle at angle A is 63 degrees. So when this person at A is looking out there at the sailboat, then this angle is 63 degrees. And then at angle B, when they look out at the sailboat, pretend that's a straight line, this is 56 degrees. Find the distance from each observer to the sailboat. So we need this and this. Those are the 2 things we need. Now, if you want to call this little b like we did before, you can call this little b because it's opposite big B. If you want to call this little a, you can call this little a. That's pretty bad. All right. Now, what are we going to have to find first before we can find either little a or little b? The third angle. What do we always do to get the third angle? So I take 63 and 56. I believe that's 119 on my calculator. So since that's 119, this is going to be a 61-degree angle right there. Now you should be able to do law of sines and set up 2 different equations. You got to do it twice to find B and A. Do you need me to show you what they would look like?
Sure.
Okay, so we're looking for side, so I would say B is to sine of 52 as 1/2 or 0.5, if you want to stick 0.5 in there, is to the sine of 61, and you got to solve that for B.
Mm-hmm.
And then what's the other one going to look like? What's the other equation going to be, the other proportion? A is to what? Sine of 63 as, and then you use the one they gave you, 1/2 is to the sine of 61. Now you ought to be able to solve that.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else got one you want me to go over? Okay, we're going to spend the rest of the period working on these. All right, so number 10 says 2 sides and the included angle of a parallelogram have measures 3.2, 4.8, and 54. So I'm going to draw a parallelogram. I'm going to assume it is not a rectangle. So you draw a parallelogram. I hope you remember this from geometry, because you need geometry stuff on these. If you watch those other videos, I did geometry on these. So it said the sides are 3.2 and 4.8, and the included angle, does anybody know what included angle means? What's included angle mean? You had it in geometry. Anybody know?
Angle between.
The angle between those 2. That's right. So this is 54 degrees right here. So I got that thing right there. Find the length of the diagonals. Well, there's something else you're supposed to know. There's something else you're supposed to know about parallelograms from geometry. Do I know any other parts of this parallelogram?
Supplementary angles.
Okay, the angles that are right next to each other are supplementary. So this angle up here has to be 180 minus 54. So this angle up here is going to be 126 degrees. And this angle right here is also 126 for the same reason. And opposite angles what? Are equal. So that's 54 degrees. And then, what else do we know about parallelograms? Opposite sides are equal. So see, there's some things that you have to know about parallelograms. So we know all this stuff. Now what you're going to do is you're going to first, we're supposed to find both diagonals. So I'm just going to label these parts, A, B, C, D. By the way, you should have learned this in geometry. when you label vertices, you start at any vertex you want, and you go alphabetical order in a circular fashion, usually clockwise, like I just did. Now, we're supposed to find one diagonal. So one diagonal is this. So when you're going to do a diagonal, what I recommend you do is draw just that triangle. I'm going to put a D here, an A here, and a C here. I know this part is 3.2. I know this angle is 54 degrees. I know this side is 4.8. I am looking for a little d. Now, what am I going to use to find this d? What do I have to use because of what they gave me? What did they give me? On the parts of this triangle, what did they give me? What's this? Side. What's this? Angle. What's this? Side, angle, side. What should you be using? I'm listening.
Law of cosine.
Law of cosine. So you should start off with b squared is going to equal c squared plus a squared minus 2ac. And you can put the a squared first and the c squared second. Cosine angle d. And you plug them in and you solve for little d. That's one diagonal. Then we got to get the other diagonal. The other diagonal is this one. Going that way, d to b. We want d to b. So draw this triangle separately. So draw it like up here. And then label what you know. So you got d, you got a, you got b. You know this is 3.2. We know this is 4.8. This is what we're looking for, little a, and we know this angle right here is 126 degrees. What'd they give us in that? Yeah. Go ahead.
For the triangles, could we also find the angles?
We don't need them. It is, all it wants to know is the diagonals, right? And the diagonals are the segment made from non-adjacent vertices. So we need to get AC and we need to get BD, and that's it. Those are the diagonals. So when I get this little a, and when I get that little d, those are my diagonals in this picture. Okay, diagonals are segments that join non-adjacent vertices. That is the definition you're supposed to have learned in geometry. I don't know how many of you learned it, but that's what you're supposed to learn. So when you get this little a, that's one diagonal. When you get this little d, that's the other diagonal. Okay? What are you going to have to use to solve this one? You got to do cosines again, because once again, you have a side, the angle between them, and the other side, so you got to do the same thing. I'm going to let you guys, thank you. I'm going to let you guys set that one up and finish that one. Okay? Y'all know you got to plug these numbers in to this stuff, right? Just like we did on the worksheet. Okay. So it is not actually a rectangle.